Okay, guys, welcome back to another edition, another episode of Rotten Reviews. On this episode, I'm going to be taking a look at audience reviews of War of the Worlds, the 2005 Tom Cruise version, directed by Steven Spielberg. It has a 75% fresh rating on the tomato meter and a 42% audience score rating. In my opinion, the critics are just in love, fascinated by Steven Spielberg. They are in awe of him, and even when he craps out something that's beneath his ability, they still rate it as perfectly fresh and, turn their noses and pretend like they're smelling something good. Because this thing is definitely rotten. In my opinion, it deserves lower than a 42% audience score. It should be under 40%. I'm going to say that I enjoyed like the first 20 minutes of this film, and then it quickly went downhill. It particularly bombed for me when the son of the family that is on the run from the aliens decided to run over the hill to join the army battle, and then the rest of the family went into the bomb shelter, the cellar, and found Tim Robbins, and everything was downhill from then. And it felt like Steven Spielberg had then abandoned the movie and decided to take off and do something else, and left his lackeys in charge to finish up. Because, at the time I had seen this, I had seen it on its first week of release on home video. I didn't realize that Steven Spielberg was a part of this. The film didn't come across to me as a Steven Spielberg movie, although I enjoyed the first part of it. But when we went into the bomb shelter, into that cellar, and it just dragged into a different kind of movie, it was just bad, and Tim Robbins was bad, and he should have never shown up in this thing. This is a complete miscast. I don't know why Spielberg thought this was a good idea. Again, it feels to me like he wasn't involved in this later half of the movie. Now, I can say that Tom Cruise didn't turn into a Mission Impossible stereotype. He did do a lot of running, his signature running really fast, but he didn't become a total action hero. He was basically just realistically playing a older but still fit dad who was trying to protect his family. So it didn't go too over the top with that, but the movie went completely into stupidity by the second half, and it also became boring. That's where I stand on that. We're going to get right into the rotten reviews, and we'll start with one from 3 days ago, half a star. It would have been a good film if Dakota Fanning would have just shut the F up. They're very angry. This is not a Dakota Fanning fan, apparently, so let's move on. 5 stars. I loved the movie. I have not seen this in a few years. Okay, that's your opinion. I don't know why you loved it. But let's move on. 4 stars. This was actually not a bad reboot. Effects were great. Overall, it was very entertaining. It was entertaining at the start. I'll give it that. If I had to give it stars, I would say 2 stars. It's a solid 2 stars. It had good action and CGI at the beginning, although I felt that the appearance of the aliens was a little underwhelming to me. It didn't feel like it had the tension it should have. I know there was a lot of action and exciting CGI, but it just didn't feel right to me. And I think part of that was that the premise that these alien ships have been buried for thousands, even millions of years beneath our cities, particularly as ridiculous as that sounds on the east coast of the US, where we have been building everything from sewer to drainage pipes to gas lines to electrical lines to plumbing to aqueducts to subways underground all along the east coast, and somehow we haven't discovered any of these buried alien ships. To me, that's completely ridiculous. I know that's not part of the original H.G. Wells novel. Um, so I'm just going to say that maybe for me that was what I found hard to believe at the beginning. So let's move on. 5 stars. Awesome movie. Tom Cruise gives a great performance here, and the tripods look and sound awesome. I also love the family dynamic that this movie has. Yes, it works. The family dynamic, and the story of the father attempting to save his family from an unknown, apocalypse, so to speak, is good for the first 20 or 25 minutes, but it quickly slows and goes into complete stupidity by halfway. And I don't see anything new. It's like Spielberg has blown all his money on CGI and action, in the first like maybe one quarter of the movie, and then after that it just drags for me. I don't know. I finished the movie, but if I had been even like slightly tired from work, I probably would have fallen asleep, particularly when by the time Tim Robbins showed up and we're in the cellar. So let's move on. 5 stars, so good. Good acting, nice CGI, and a suspense that would let you in your chair during all of the movie. Absolutely must watch. No, the suspense, again, yeah, for the first 20 minutes, and then it's quickly like ho hum to me. 1 star, worst movie ever. 2 hours of stress and suspense, which fizzle out in the last 10 minutes with no storyline, no climax, and no real resolution. 1 star, because zero isn't an option. 120 minutes I'll never get back. Yeah, I'll largely agree with that. There's no real climax. It builds up to nothing. In fact, it doesn't even build up because, like I said, when we go into the cellar with Tim Robbins, the tension just stops building after that, and there is no climax. The son shows up again inexplicably, somehow having survived running into the middle of a battle between the army and the aliens. He just shows up again, and the father hugs him, and everything's cool. It's not exactly a climax. 2.5 stars. It has a lot of problems in its writing. Some things work, like the basement scene. Majority of the rest is just kind of sloppy. I totally disagree. The basement cellar scene is the worst part. I almost didn't want to watch through it. Completely disagree. 5 stars, probably one of his best. I don't know if this reviewer is referring to Tom Cruise or referring to Tim Robbins or referring to Spielberg, but it was not the best from any of them. I think Spielberg just kind of half-assed it or was asleep himself during the last half of the movie. So I completely disagree. 2 stars. Even Tom Cruise held his tongue in his cheek the entire movie. The rest of the characters were barely believable. Yeah, I'll agree. Yes, the dynamic between them was fine, but actually they were almost cardboard in a way. Cruise was a little bit cardboard in that we saw what he was, but we didn't see him become anything else. We didn't see how he had become the way he was, other than he was divorced. There wasn't a lot there to work with. 5 stars, my favorite film, not written in English, but I can tell what they're saying, and I disagree 100%. 5 stars, I liked this movie. The acting was first rate, especially Dakota Fanning and Tom Cruise. The script was excellent, as were the special effects. It was amazingly believable. I would say no, unless you were a little kid at the time. Maybe if you were 8 years old when you saw this film in the theater, it was so scary and exciting to you. As an adult, no. 4 stars. Been years since I saw this one, but I remember enjoying it quite a bit. It had some genuinely intense and even frightening moments. Again, no. If you were a little kid at the time, maybe. 3.5 stars. Melancholic, yet you would feel the power of the aliens. Actually, the aliens felt completely stupid to me. The tripod design, I know it was part of H.G. Wells' original story. I know it's been done this way in all of the other attempts at doing War of the Worlds. I know the tripods are a thing, but the way they're portrayed in this movie, it just didn't work for me. It almost seemed like they were using some sort of anti-gravity that we were unaware of to keep themselves upright. It just wasn't believable to me. 5 stars. War of the Worlds delivers an entertaining cat and mouse sci-fi epic, way better than the appalling Minority Report. War of the Worlds is the best film of 2005. Wow, I find that hard to believe that that's even a real review, so let's move on. 4 stars. I'm stunned at the 42% rating here. You people been to the theater in the last few years to watch sci-fi movies. Only gripe I had was the two kids. Got on my nerves a lot. But but the special effects were good. Cruise in his usual solid acting. Nice touch with the original War of the Worlds actors doing a cameo at the end. Um, I completely disagree. You're saying that it should have been higher than 42%. I'm saying it should be lower than 42%, particularly comparing this to what we can expect from Steven Spielberg. If we fairly, in my opinion, compare this to his other work, this one is bad. So completely disagree. 5 stars. Tom Cruise did the best he could do in this movie, and he was successful. It is a really good movie. I'd say he ran as fast as he could, which he does a lot of that in a lot of his films. Otherwise, I don't know what he did here that was better than anything else he does. It wasn't. It was nothing remarkable. Maybe you could time him. He was running from the tripods down the street. Maybe if you timed that and then you timed him running in Mission Impossible, you could say he was running a little faster or slower. That would be a fair thing to compare, but that's not what I'm comparing here. I'm comparing the actual entertainment of this film. So let's move on. 3 stars, great special effects, but a letdown overall. Yeah, you can't complain about the effects. They were well done. I think, like I said, the director blew his load all at the beginning, though, because the rest was a snore fest. 5 stars, awesome. One of my all-time favorite sci-fi flicks. I would say, yeah, if you're a little kid, maybe. Just like those little kids that saw the Phantom Menace when they were 8 years old. Oh my gosh, they just think it's the greatest thing. Even to this day, it's so exciting to them. I'm afraid not. I saw this movie, I was well over 30, and it did not impress me. 2 stars, a few good special effects, but the writing is horrific. If you can get past the obnoxious piercing screams of the little obnoxious girl, you probably can't get past all the stupid people in this movie. Yeah, Dakota Fanning's performance as a screaming, crying little girl, it could get obnoxious, I suppose. It didn't bother me that much, maybe because I've had experience with kids in the real world, so that didn't come across as over the top to me, but I could see how a young single millennial person, yeah, it'd be hard to sit through her performance. 3.5 stars. I liked this film, hands up. I am a Tom Cruise fan. Film was good all the way through, but I felt the ending was a bit too simple. Yeah, the ending was totally non-climactic. In an action movie, you want a climax at the end. That's the point. They're all like that. That's what you expect. We didn't get one. It just kind of ended and everything was fine. Yes, all the other versions kind of end in a similar way, but this one had no climactic feel to it. It just felt like it petered out right from that basement that we were in. 3 stars, action-packed fun thrill ride. No, that ended right as we went into the basement. 4 stars, 4.5 stars, an amazing and underrated science fiction movie which Steven Spielberg did a great job directing. Tom Cruise, who plays a deadbeat, irresponsible dad, puts on a really good performance in, and if you're a fan of the original 1953 movie, then this is highly worth a watch. No, I disagree. There's nothing new here. And I didn't even think Tom Cruise's character, like seeing the engine block inside his house on the dining room table, that wasn't even that interesting. I've actually met people like that in real life. They are not fathers with kids, but yes, they do live like that. I thought that was just a taste of something interesting, but we didn't get to see how Tom Cruise exactly got to be that way. On one hand, he's got an engine block on his dining room table, but on the other hand, he's really strict about his son being able to drive the car when he's around. This doesn't quite compute for me. So, it's cardboard. 5 stars, energetic, heart-pounding, and absolutely amazing War of the Worlds succeeds as a classic disaster film. That sounds like almost somebody from the film's marketing team, but we are way too late. That was 14 years ago, guys, so I guess you're practicing. I don't know. 3 stars, a solid contemporary reimagining that's grounded and intense. Well, yeah, in the first 20 minutes. 3 stars, remake of a classic originated from a novel. Extraterrestrials are here to harvest and humanity are the crop. Yeah, but if you want to go by that logic, it completely falls apart. Maybe when this were a book and it were new, like the later part of the 19th century, this would be plausible. But what we know today is that if you have the technology to come to Earth by whatever means, the fact that you would come here using all these gigantic tripods just to get our blood, just to harvest our bodies for blood, it makes no sense. We are at the point where we can grow human blood if we need. Why would aliens need to come all the way here and use all of their resources and go to war with us in any regard just to get our blood? No, that's the most nonsensical part of this, along with the buried tripods. So, it's another thing that I can say Spielberg, he lets me down because I know he's capable of putting more thought into this. Yes, you can say it's an alien invasion story from the late 19th century, but still, this is very hokey today. I mean, it doesn't work. They don't attempt to make it work. Spielberg or whoever produced this, they don't attempt to make it work and explain why it's plausible aliens would need our blood. They just show that that's the case. It doesn't work for me. 4 stars. I'm not sure why this movie gets such bad reviews from people. The visuals are on point, the performances are great, and the story is very interesting. Just because a little girl acts the way a little girl would act in an alien attack doesn't mean it's a bad movie. Spielberg does it again. Again, they're referring to other reviewers criticizing Dakota Fanning's performance as the little girl. I guess it really does bother a lot of people. That's the least problematic part of this movie. This movie just fails, even if you have an open mind to all the contrivances in the plot. When we go into that cellar, that's when this thing fails and it becomes irredeemable as a movie. 4 stars. Emotional, scary. I loved this one. Pretty suspense. No. 5 stars. Such an underrated movie. Spielberg creates an immersive thriller that grips you and doesn't let go. Sure, the ending is slightly anticlimactic, but the film is more than rewarding. A noughties classic. No. If you want a classic, you should go back to Minority Report. Okay, that's a sci-fi classic from the same time period. It does have a climax. It does have a great story. It does have suspense. You can criticize it for some nitpicks, but comparing this to that, this is a total bomb. It's a dud. It's pathetic. 2 stars. The original, it's better, way better. Yes, I believe the 1950s movie is better for what it tries to do. 1.5 stars. Worst acted movie of Tom Cruise. Pathetic storyline. Girl is only screaming, screaming, and screaming, trying to create nervousness, but ending up creating feeling and everyone slapping her when she does that. They are dying just like that. Steven, what shit you have made. Again, the little girl rubbed people the wrong way. Perhaps they shouldn't have focused on that so much, but it was really a travesty the way the story just let the son inexplicably run off over the hill to join the army. It made no sense. And then on top of that, Tom Cruise just kind of said, okay, yeah, and just like ran back to the basement with his daughter. Really? This is like where it all went off the rails, and it only went downhill from there. 4 stars. For a couple of hours, I was convinced Tom Cruise was a real person. No. For the first 20 minutes, I was convinced, but then it went downhill, and he became like, not quite an action hero, but there are scenes with him like going up into a tripod and throwing a grenade, and he kind of becomes stuntman Tom Cruise again, just a little bit. I don't know. I wouldn't say he convinced me he's a normal person. He just convinced me that he's an action hero that was trying to like downplay his action hero stuff a little bit. 5 stars. Suspenseful and terrifying with some awesome looking machines in the mixture. Steven Spielberg managed to get me to come back to this film so many times that counting is just not possible. Simply put, Steven Spielberg's War of the Worlds is one of my utmost favorites. Oh, well, that's fantastic. You've watched this many times. I can't even imagine which parts that you're fast forwarding through. Oh wait, let me guess, you're fast forwarding completely through the cellar scenes. Okay, then I can see that. 4 stars. The film was horrifying and it felt like I was inside of a nightmare. It mastered the feeling of being surrounded by monsters. The biggest problem I had was the screaming little girl who screamed 90% of the time, like Willie on Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. Um, did he scream in Temple of Doom like that? I don't remember. I guess we're referring to the character called Short Round. I don't recall that. But then again, I don't recall that much of Dakota Fanning screaming in this. It just, I don't know. I've seen little kids when they're just on short road trips that they get a mood. Oh, and they scream and scream and scream. It doesn't take aliens to make them scream. So I don't know. This didn't rub me as being over the top in that regard, at least. 4 stars. Interesting story, great cast and visuals. It was interesting until we went to the basement. 4 stars, not bad, enjoyable parts. Well, then, yeah, why did you give it 4 stars? Give it 2, we'll talk. 2 stars, good story, ruined by everything except Fanning. 1 star for story and 1 for Fanning's acting, not worth watching. Okay, this person's saying the story was ruined by everything except Dakota Fanning. So which is it? But anyway, we agree on 2 stars. 3.5 stars. This is a great movie based on the famed H.G. Wells novel of the same name. A-list actor teams up with A-list director to make a good, entertaining film that needs to be appreciated. The effects of the alien tripods are amazing, especially the sound design. They evoke fear. The plotting and pacing is efficient, which should be expected from Spielberg, and the acting is good. You know how the film ends, and yet this film keeps you engrossed. If you haven't read the famous novel, I suggest you read it. Well, yeah, we know how it's supposed to end. It pretty much ends the way it's supposed to, but it feels like there was no climax, like we just got to the end because we were supposed to get there, and somewhere about halfway through the film, Spielberg just like had better things to do, so the rest of the staff like finished it up for him. 4 stars. This is the second collaboration between Tom Cruise and Steven Spielberg after Minority Report. I think most of you would be aware of the source, H.G. Wells' famous book, and this is a worthy addition to the many adaptations the famed book has had, featuring typical Spielberg traits. He treats War of the World is a big budget adaptation with enough scenes to whet your alien appetite. If there's one thing I wish they'd have done is they'd tone Dakota Fanning down a few notches. Yeah, again, another vote against her screaming, I guess. Again, that's the least of the problems. 4 stars. This is the second collaboration. Okay, again, a repeat. Sometimes when you post something, you're not sure it went through and you just push it again. I guess that's what happened. 5 stars. Awesome movie. Stop dissing it. No, I'm not going to stop dissing it. Explain to me why we went into the cellar and then nothing happened after that, and then I'll stop. 4 stars. Like its visually thrilling tripod, Steven Spielberg's War of the Worlds manages to stand steady on its own, and in some aspects much stronger than its previous adaptation, even though it could have played out more focus over its actual source material. Well, see, I've never read the book, so I don't know if there's an explanation, a plausible one about, how the tripods function or anything like that. Since it's written in the late 19th century, I'm guessing no by today's standards. So let's move on. 3 stars. This is a great movie based on the famed H.G. Wells novel of the same name. A-list actor teams up with A-list director to make a good, entertaining film that needs to be appreciated. I would say, without going through the rest of this word salad here, that yes, since we have an A-list director and we have an A-list actor, and we have seen them together in a good sci-fi film called Minority Report in the same rough time period, that's why I say this peaks at 2 stars, because we know they were capable of more, but yet they didn't. They just decided to kind of half-ass this one. 3.5 stars. This is a great movie based on the okay, whatever. 1 star. The world is ending, but the little girl gets a timeout for crying. Well, the little girl gets a timeout for crying, and the son gets a timeout to go join the army. Makes sense, right? 4 stars. This is the okay, stop repeating yourself. 5 stars. This movie is an absolute spectacle. Great special effects, great acting, great story, and score by John Williams is stunning. Wow, it sounds like something copy and pasted from somebody reviewing maybe Star Wars The Force Awakens. Imagine that. 4 stars. This is the second collaboration. Okay, repeat it again. How many times are you going to post the same review? I don't know. 3.5 stars. I don't think legendary director Steven Spielberg has made an unapologetic grim film since Jaws, and his take on the classic H.G. Wells novel is very cool. This movie is good at showing the characters' emotions as well as human nature, and also a touch of global paranoia. I don't get that part. Global paranoia? Not really, but anyway. Without forgetting giant alien tripods blowing everything inside into pieces, the special effects are extremely, especially for the mid-2000s, impressive. Yeah, he put everything but the kitchen sink into like the first 20 minutes or so, and then it was all downhill from there. 3 stars. A thrilling take on alien invasion. Director Steven Spielberg thrusts Tom Cruise into fatherhood during an alien invasion. Spielberg comes up with endless cool shots, pans, and scenarios to scare the life out of the audience. Again, I don't think that there was anything scary about this unless you were a little kid. Yeah, if you were like 9 or 10, maybe. As an adult, 20, 30, 40-year-old adult, there is nothing in this film that's scary whatsoever. Cruz is quite compelling as an unwilling father. Not really, because you don't see how he became that unwilling father, and you don't see a change in him by the end. Not really. Unfortunately, the children are really annoying. Dakota Fanning is a good little actress, but her incessant screams are heinously overdone. The son, played by Justin Chatwin, is too stubborn to the point of being ridiculous. Yeah, he's so stubborn that he needs to run off and join the army, that the dad just lets him and calls it good. And yet, the film spends so much doing that, and then it never lets us see what the son saw. So again, Spielberg blew all those special effects at the beginning, and then we don't even get to see what the son needed so desperately to see. Pretty much a letdown, because right from that point we go into the cellar, and I'm just thinking, why am I in the cellar with Tim Robbins? And Tim Robbins is a complete psycho, and why am I here? Where are the aliens? Where's the action? And where's the sun? 4.5 stars. A surprise, since nobody speaks of this film and it's directed by Spielberg. I wonder why they don't speak of it. Not to mention hated for the wrong reasons. For starters, the special effects. Holy shit, did this look great. Never did I think it was a studio or a green screen, and it was made in '04, people. An '04 film looks better than most of the stuff out today. This review is from 2018. I disagree. It's passable today, but it doesn't look better. Maybe it looks better than B-movie stuff today, sure. I'm glad Spielberg always puts passion into his projects, because it shows here. Every shot is aligned beautifully and gives a sense of dread with a hint of hope. Yeah, but where did it all go? It went into the basement with Tim Robbins. 5 stars. Anyone who doesn't give this 10 out of 10 doesn't know life. This film is life. This film is like it's film. I guess that makes it 5 stars. Usually I would say I give a film half a star just for being a film, because it put people to work and it helped the economy. I give this 2 stars otherwise. 4.5 stars. Very fast-paced first hour, but the basement act severely slows down the film. But besides that, the action and aliens make this a very intriguing film. No, they don't. There's nothing about the aliens or the action that give us something new. We've seen all this before. In fact, just calling it War of the Worlds, we've seen this done many times before. Hell, there was a TV show on TV about this before, twice, as a matter of fact. So, you would think Steven Spielberg would show us something new. He doesn't, and yeah. 3 stars. A good update of the story. Not sure it updates anything. Yeah, it puts it in a more modern setting, but yeah, not really good. Half a star. One of the worst movies I have seen. There is no plot. I wouldn't say there's no plot, but there's no classical build up to a climax. So yeah, it fails. 5 stars. One of my favorite films. You're a little kid. 3 stars. Despite impressive visuals, it somehow wasn't as good as it should have been. Yes, I totally agree. That's why I give it 2 stars. 5 stars. Childhood memories. Just like I said. Just like those Phantom Menace memories, back in the day. The sweet childhood memories. No, I'm judging this on, what it's like as an adult to watch a film that was marketed to adults with money that paid for those tickets as adults. 4 stars, a very good movie for Steven Spielberg and Tom Cruise. No, compared to Minority Report, sorry, no. Half a star, if I hear Dakota Fanning scream one more time, I'm going to stab myself in the ears. Okay, I think that's enough. I've made my point clear. This should be lower. Again, I think it's fresh just because Spielberg's name is attached to it. That's my feeling. 42%. It could go lower. It should be lower. This is very disappointing. It's a particularly disappointing if you compare it to Minority Report, which it is justified in every way to compare it against that. This is like, Steven Spielberg, he really put a lot into it for the first 30 minutes, and then, I don't know, he got called to something else. He had something more interesting to do. That's what it feels like to me. So I'm going to leave it at that and see you again on the next episode of Rotten Reviews.